Well, I'm the COO of EmergeClean Incorporated, but I'm also the East Coast Director of EHS Incorporated Training Center. EHS has established since 1997, has specialized in environmental health and safety consulting and training services in California. From written safety plan development to effective employee safety education, we cover all corners of the regulations. We basically are the construction safety experts. California was established, and then I met up, and we started an East Coast Training Center. A little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm the COO for EmergeClean. We're actually a nationally recognized company that specializes in blood and bodily fluids from homicides, suicides, unfound deaths, and we also handle infectious materials. We do all of the OSHA materials on deaths on construction sites, so this is actually why we got into safety training and teaming up with EHS, because we found that whatever we could prevent, we would like to, because we've seen kind of on both sides of what happens. So the agenda, I'm going to give you guys agenda into the intro of the Bill 1447. We're going to talk about the task force that was created, well, about 2 weeks ago, the audits and reporting, civil penalties and violations, the SST requirements, and SST cards. Now, so everyone knows, the intro to Bill 1447 is also called the Local Law 196, which I'll talk about next. The intro to Bill 1447. This bill was introduced in October of 2017. Well, it was passed into law in October 2017. Now it's the Local Law 196. It added on to the already strict guidelines with the DOB and the building code. So the bill, which was passed, amends the New York City Building Code in relation to the training qualifications of persons engaged in the construction and demolition of buildings. We'll talk about a little bit more of later on exactly who this will affect, because it doesn't affect everybody, like delivery persons, flag people, but we will also go into that a little bit. On and after March 1st, each permit holder at a building site for which a construction site superintendent, site safety manager, or site safety coordinator is required should be responsible for ensuring that each construction and demolition worker employed or otherwise engaged at such site by a permit holder or performing subcontractor work must successfully complete an OSHA 10 or 30 hours from the New York City building, the approved DOB 100-hour training program. Now, currently, the DOB requires every 5 years that you update your OSHA 10 anyway and your OSHA 30. So majority of your sites currently, everyone is currently up to this. So there should be no incidents while enacting this part of it. It's going forward that you'll see where we have to add on to training. Basically, in a nutshell, all workers will be required to complete a minimum of 40 hours of safety-related training to obtain an SST card to be eligible to work on a construction site in New York City. Currently, like I said, it's only a 10. This new bill will now make a 40-hour safety-related training. The task force. So basically, the DOB created the task force, the SST Task Force, of 14 members. Now, from my understanding, and Lee will be speaking, that was created about 2 weeks ago, a week ago from our understanding, so they have a little bit of catching up to. They're basically going to be providing recommendations to the safety training requirements by the New York City Building Code. The task force will meet at least quarterly each year for the first 2 years, and at least annually for 3 years thereafter. So for the next 5 years, the task force will be coming together at least sometime throughout the year to really hash down of the requirements, what they see is working, what's not working, kind of to discuss everything and see what they can do to further on to enhance the training and the safety within the New York City. Audits. The New York City Departments of Building, the DOB, shall audit the SST providers to ensure that all training appliances are met with connection to the Section 3321 of all New York City building codes. Now, where I have a feeling this will end up actually hurting or not hurting, but being conflicted is regarding the training records, keeping the training records, reporting everything, that getting the audits. That I can see being a little bit of difficulty for smaller companies as well as bigger ones. Currently, when we go on sites, you just have to show an OSHA 10. They take a photograph with your license. Now with the extra additional training, I have a feeling that might be a little bit harder to keep on site. So that's something to really look at going forward, is understanding how your company is going to be able to keep all these records together and establish that protocol ahead of time so you don't run into issues. So no later than 3 months at the end of each fiscal year, the chairperson of the task force will report to the mayor and speaker of the council and will make available online a report of the Section 3321 of New York City Building Codes. So it will basically say the number of SST providers, number of cards issued, temp cards, number of violations, just giving a breakdown of exactly what's going on, especially the enforcement methods as well. Civil penalties and violations. Civil penalties for violations of the new training requirements of the SST vary. Okay, so your immediate hazard violations for each imposed violation is 1,000 to 25,000. Every additional penalty for each day the violation is not corrected is 1,000. Now, from my understanding, if they come on site, $5,000 for each person that actually is not currently or you do not have the records for on site. And then after that, additional is $5,000 each person, so it can add up. Now, major violations for each imposed violation is up to $10,000. Any additional penalty for each month the violation is not corrected is up to $250. Lesser violations can be $500. Site owners, permit holders, and employees of untrained workers. As you just said, up to $5,000 for untrained workers. And if they fail to maintain training logs, $2,500. This is why I said it's extremely important for you guys to understand how to keep and maintain these training logs, because instead of an OSHA 10 now or an OSHA 30, you are now increasing that to have more training on site. So your SST requirements. Let's go off of that. Your SST requirements. Wherever a job requires a construction superintendent, like I was saying, site safety manager, or site safety coordinator, is required to provide the following training to its workers. So like I said, by March 1st, which is tomorrow, an OSHA 10, OSHA 30, or the DOB-approved 100-hour training program. Currently, to get onto a construction site in New York City, you have to have an OSHA 10 anyway. So most of you guys or anybody that are currently working, the rules are already going about this and you're already following it. Now by December 1st, OSHA 10, an additional 20 hours of training is required, which means technically your OSHA 30 or any DOB-approved 100 hours training program. Now, this is where it is. On December 1st, if the department determines that there's not enough training provided or providers, supervisors will at least require to have the SST supervisor card, but they're going to extend the new deadline to June 1st. But that's, again, only determining if the department determines that there's not enough training providers to make sure everyone has the training. But at this point, new entries to the construction or demolition may still be working with the temporary SST card, which is non-renewable card that expires after 6 months that is issued. I will go a little bit more into that. By May 1st, OSHA 10 and 30 to 45 additional training hours, or OSHA 30 and 10 to 25 additional training hours, or DOB-approved 100-hour training program. So again, now you're looking from December, could be June. If it's June, of course, the May one will be extended as well. But if it doesn't extend by May 1st, you guys are going to be required anywhere from 40 to 55 hours of additional training to physically have just one man on that construction site. Okay, an SST credit is essential in 1 hour of training that satisfies each of the following requirements. Training topics must be identified by the DOB. Training topics is delivered in person or actively proctored online, which we'll get to in a little bit. Training topics delivered by an SST provider. Now, the total number of hours of required training will be decided by the department after receiving recommendations from the task force. So this could go up, and that's why the last slide before it said 30 to 45 from the task force composed of members of the industry. The list of topics for the training hours could satisfy the training requirements will be decided by the department in that same matter. The task force must provide its recommendation no later than tomorrow, which I don't think is going to be met. So I have a feeling we're going to find a little bit more about that going in the next 6 months. Now, the department will determine the total amount of hours required training and the list of eligible topics before December 1st. So again, they haven't really decided what topics are going to be allowed, not allowed. That's supposed to be discussed and approved by December 1st. So that's, I think, another feeling of the December 1st deadline to the June 19th deadline. If they cannot, the task force can't come together on what training should be provided, I have a feeling they're going to push that back to the June. The number and content of additional training hours will be determined, like I said, by the DOB before December 1st. Now, popular construction topics that we all deal with right now, PPE, fall protection, intro to OSHA, material handling, walking, working surfaces, electrical safety, CPR, asbestos, everything that you currently know about is a part that we believe will be credits in the SST program. Who else will need training? Supervisors, site managers, coordinators, concrete safety managers, construction superintendents, and competent person must receive a minimum of 60 hours of training. So now it's kind of giving that competent person via OSHA. They're not saying, oh, that guy's a competent person, but really doesn't have that experience. They're saying that if you're suggesting that that person is a competent person, they must have a minimum of 60 hours of training. Now, what the DOB will require on that will be coming December 1st. But again, any competent person needs to have a minimum of 60 hours of training. New entries to the construction workforce must take the OSHA 10 and within 6 months must attain the minimum of 40 hours of training to continue working. This I can see a challenge, and this is where you guys got to pre-plan ahead of time, because when you're hiring somebody, now you're going to have to keep track of them. So some type of Excel sheet, some type of system has to be created that will benefit you guys to make sure that that new entry continues to complete that training. On bigger construction sites, I can see that being an issue. Even on smaller ones, if you're getting busier, you're hiring people, they're giving you the OSHA tenure on site, but now you are required to make sure they have 40 hours of training for the next 6 months. Exceptions. People that aren't included. It's going to be your delivery people, your flag people, professional engineers, architects, special inspectors, DOB licenses, and workers at the job site that only include minor alterations or construction of new 1, 2, or 3 family homes. They do not require the training. Once you go above the 3, you're now required to have everything that the SST requirements are. But again, your flag people, your delivery people that are coming in and out every day dropping off materials, they do not need to meet this requirement. This, I feel, is a lot big difference, the online training aspect of it. The online training is only accepted if it's actively proctored. Actively proctored online training consists of online training taken in the classroom with the proctor, or online training that is minimum required that students do declare that they are individually that received the training without assistance, and it was monitored at random times. A lot of people will go on these sites and take your OSHA 30, your OSHA 10s. They give you the card. That is good. The DOB is saying and the task force in New York City is saying, no, that's not good enough. We actually want it actively proctored, and we want to make sure that person is actually taking that test and that they're paying attention. That, I think, changes a lot in the industry, because a lot of these companies are now saying, hey, click on OSHA 10, you're going there, you're clicking back and forth, it's getting done. They're actually going to physically want to see the proctoring sites. So your SST cards. So your temporary SST cards is what we were saying, the new entries, okay? For new entries who have completed an OSHA 10, they're going to get a temporary SST card. This is valid for 6 months and is not renewable. Okay, so you got to understand that at that worksite, it's not renewable, which means after 6 months, it goes away. For workers who have completed one of the following will obtain unlimited SST card, an OSHA 10 plus 20 SST credits, or an OSHA 30, or a 100-hour training program. This is valid through May 1st, 2019 for the full compliance date. Now again, and I want to reiterate on this, is the temporary SST card. So if someone shows up with a 10-hour, they get a temporary. It's valid for 6 months. After 6 months, you can't renew it. You can't put him back in the system and say, oh, he left for a day, he came. So what will end up happening after that 6 months, you have to make sure they've obtained 20 SST credits, or they've attained the OSHA 30. So this is where the difficult part of now the site safety, the company that's GCing the project, they're going to have to keep up with this. Now, the full SST card is for workers who have completed one of the following: OSHA 10 plus 30 to 45 SST credits. Again, it says 30 to 45 because I brought up before the department has to agree with the task force on how many credits to take. Or OSHA 30 plus 10 to 25 SST credits, or the 100 hours training program. That's valid for 5 years and is renewable. Okay, so your full SST card is renewable and is valid for 5 years. Basically, currently, an OSHA 10 should be retaken every 5 years in New York City. That's what they ask for. But now with the full SST card, this is what you're required to take, and then it's valid for 5 years, and it is renewable. So additional SST cards. So you have an SST supervisor card for supervisors who have completed the OSHA 30 class, valid for 5 years and is renewable. Successfully complete of 16 SST credit requirements within 4 years of certification before renewal. So right now, if you're taking OSHA 30, you're considered a supervisor. Now you have to definitely get 16 SST credits within 4 years of the certification before the renewal. So open registration for our company. It's the East Coast Learning Center. We are an approved SST provider, and we offer the OSHA 10 and 30 construction courses. Procore members do get preferred rates. Basically, what we do here is we do have a training center in our Rahway office that you can actually come to, or we can come to on site if you have multiple people. And that's a quick review of what we're dealing with. Now, again, I might have went a little fast. It's a bill. It's the local law, like I said, of 196. It's going to be, you guys are going to learn as you go, and so is everybody. The biggest things that you guys really need to remember is the dates and what requirements are required on them dates. Although I feel like them dates are going to change, you still should have them, and you should still be implementing programs in place so you can get and meet these deadlines. It's always good to make sure these deadlines are met through internal components in your company, and that's, again, March 1st that's where everyone is required to have a 10, which would be considered your temporary. Okay? Then you're going to go to your limited card, SST card, which would be December 1st. This is your release dates where at least 30 hours of training will be required. That's your OSHA 10 plus 20. Now, that's December 1st, which could be pushed back. Now, your May 1st, that is your day that you guys are going to be required to have full SST cards. This is going to be, again, your OSHA 10 plus the 30, 40, 45 hours. Supervisors are going to be, your 30 and the 16 SST credits for renewal. So these are the little things that are really going to be keyed on, and for you guys to understand the important dates that you guys are going to have to be required and the requirements that will be enforced. Other than that, it's a simple bill. The requirements are extremely easy. Everyone, like I said, is currently with 10s, so now we just got to somehow implement within your system how to keep the training available so you can make sure that these people are actually going to training to make sure they can go from your temporary to your limited to your full, especially if you have projects for a couple years. You want to make sure that you have that all going. Well, thank you guys. I mean, I know it was kind of quick. It's a topic that, like I said, I can't tell you guys stories about how, I made a law when I was 16. No, it's not that. This is more of an informative session of making sure you guys understand what the requirements would be